Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. So I made another pattern. I drew up pattern just like this, like I always do. It's gonna be big. Yes, it's gonna be a big one. It's queen size. But hey, you know, you could always make less of whatever I tell you and make a smaller one. So I want to pre-warn you in this video, you may see me using more than one fabric type. Not type, but fabric, whatever style, colors. That is because I tested, but I filmed some parts, and now I'm going to film the proper parts because obviously, you know, when I test a pattern, sometimes I say, oh, this, and this in a video, and then I have to voice over that part and say 25, and then I keep going and you can hear the sound variance. Well, anyways. So I'm not always correct when I do my math, but now that I made this, I can make it again. And no, it's not hanging on the wall behind me because I'm not going to show you till the very end, like always. I mean, who do you think I am? Anyway, so let's get to what we need for today's video. In this video, we need two jelly rolls. Now, these are 40-piece jelly rolls. Some come in 42 pieces, blah, blah, blah. I am using, didn't put the glasses on for this, Artesian Batiks Butterfly Blooms. So it is a scale of purples and stuff. And since I'm opening them anyway, you know, I'm going to open one and then show you that it's pretty purples. I'll show you more when I, you know, move the camera. But in reality, if you want to make this, because you're going to see when we start making things, you can make this as a scrap quilt as well. So if you're doing a scrap quilt, you need to cut yourself 53, that's 53 jelly roll strips, 2.5-inch strips by width of fabric. So I've just grabbed 2 jelly rolls because it makes it easier, and the leftover strips, they get used, as in I'm going to bind the quilt with the leftover strips. So, I mean, nothing's going to waste. So 2 jelly rolls or 53 jelly roll strips or 2.5-inch strips, whatever, however you want to say it. And then, you know me, I always grab a whole bolt, but I already know by doing the math that we need 4.5 yards. That's 4 1/2. That's kind of weird to put it in my fingers like that. Anyways, I know you guys think I'm so silly. Okay, so 4.5 yards of background. I have paired white. White. Just plain white. I know. When do I ever use plain white with purple batiks? I know. So weird, right? So 2 jelly rolls and 4.5 yards, or 53 jelly roll strips and 4.5 yards. But you could buy 5 yards probably if you wanted to, in case you want to add a border, but the quilt's going to be big enough, so that's on you. I'm not adding borders to mine. I'm just leaving it. But if you want to be on the safe side and you know you're going to mess up your cutting or you're not quite sure, buy 5 yards, because then you'll have a half yard left over, and if you don't use it, you can use it on something else. So let's go ahead now that I am 100% aware of the cutting instructions without any mess ups. Let's cut what we need out, all of it. I'm going to cut all of it and then start piecing, because I find it a lot easier if we just cut it all out than piece it, which is what I did with the previous one, which you're not going to see till the end of this video. So let's go ahead and start cutting. So I'm using Riley Blake Floralicious by Leila. Did I say Leila? Leila Tueller. Oh my goodness, I'm butchering. I can't even say butchering. I'm butchering that name. Anyways, Riley Blake. I don't think you can find these anymore. There's 40 pieces in here. This is older because I bought it a long time ago, back when jelly rolls were $47.95. And Even longer ago, they were less than that, right? Remember? Okay, well, anyways, this was when a nice jelly roll was, under $50. So I'm going to use 2 jelly rolls. I'm doing black because these purples and teals and pinks like pop amazing on the black. So, all right, without further ado, let's get started on today's video. All right, so I'm going to start with my background yardage, but first let me show you. Oh, is that going to be sticky on there? Anyways, let me just show you how pretty these colors are. Again, they're artesian batiks. This is butterfly blooms. I don't know if you can even find these anymore. I've had them for quite a while. To get started, let me show you the jelly roll. But I'm going to go ahead and set those aside, and we're going to start with our background yardage. Again, 4.5 yards is what you need. And I'm going to go ahead now and line this up on a line and start making some cuts. Oh, I probably should just like do this correctly, but when I'm filming a video, it never ends up right. All right, I'm going to straighten this up. Straighten it up. It's been rolled up for a while. All right, now that that is nice and straight, I'm going to go ahead and cut a nice straight edge on one side of my yardage. I'm going to go ahead and grab my ruler, lining it up on the line, and make a nice straight cut. I will put the numbers that we're cutting on the screen as I'm cutting them. Our first background cuts are 6 15.5-inch strips. I'm going to go ahead and turn this around, line it up on 15.5. We're going to cut 6 15.5-inch pieces off of here. So there's one. I'm just going to set it aside, slide this over, and I'm going to cut 6 of these. So I'm just literally going to put it right back on the line again, come over to 15.5 right here, and cut again. I'm going to go ahead, set this aside. All right, make my cut. Now we're going to subcut those. I'm just going to move the yardage out of the way. I'm going to go ahead, flatten my yardage out, and I'm going to stack 3. So that's giving me 6 layers at a time. So I'm going to stack these up on top of each other really nicely. All right, once they are all stacked up, I'm going to line them up right here on a line. So once it's crossing a line, we're going to go ahead now and cut off the selvage. I'm cutting 6 layers at a time here. Okay. And my rotary cutter needs to be changed. I said that in my last live, and did I do it? No. All right, now we're going to cut our 15-inch pieces, our 15.5-inch pieces into 4.5-inch segments. So line it up on 4.5 on your ruler. Make the cut. Line it up on 4.5. Make the cut. 4.5. One more time. All right, and then these, do not toss them. We're going to have to press the fold because we are going to be using this part of the fabric. So I will open these up and then go press them so that they're flat. But let me cut the other 6, or the other 3 pieces, 6 layers worth. So I'm just going to set these aside. They should be 4.5 by 15.5 inches. So I'm going to set those aside. All right, and then I'm going to go over to the iron and press these. So let me go do that real quick and we'll cut some more. All right, I pressed those. Let's stack these up and out of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and straighten these real quick on top of each other. We need all 6 of them. If I would have cut different numbers, then we would have used more yardage. So this allows us to save a little on our yardage because there's an exact amount of what we need from those 6 15.5 inch strips. All right, so I'm going to go ahead real quickly, re-straighten this side. So I'm just going to line the ruler up like that, and you can see it's quite off. Oops. Because that's what happens when it's on the fold. I'm going to turn it around and cut 1 4.5 inch strip off of all 6 of these. Just like that. This can be discarded or used in another project. All right. So you should have 54 4.5 by 15.5, 4.5 by 15.5 inch rectangles. That's 54 of them. All right, set that aside, grab our yardage. Let's cut some more fabric. And now we are going to cut 2, that's just 2 13-inch strips off of here. That's 2 13-inch strips. So there's one. Go ahead and just open this, move that out of the way, slide this over. 2 13-inch. So I have that carefully lined up. We're going to come over here to the 23 because that makes 13 from 10. Here, right there, nice and lined up. Make the cut. Set this aside for a moment and stack and subcut. So we're going to stack our 13-inch by width of fabric strips sideways. Going to line it up on a line, making sure the selvage is completely crossed over that line. And now we're going to cut 4.5 inch strips. We need 18 4.5 inch rectangles. So there's my half on that side. There's my 4 right here. So there's 4, 8, 12, 16, and we're going to do the same thing as previous. You're going to open these up, press them, and we're going to cut 2 more to make 18 4.5 by 13-inch rectangles. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just stack these out of the way real quick. There should be 18 total, 4.5. So I'm just going to straighten one edge out. It always gets a little wonky on one side. But you need a total of 18 4.5 by 13-inch. And this gives you exactly 18 of them instead of cutting an extra strip. This is so much easier. Set that aside. Place this into my stack, and again, we should have 18 4.5 by 13-inch rectangles. 4.5 by 13-inch rectangles. Let's cut some more background. We are going to cut some 2.5-inch strips. So we're going to cut 5 2.5-inch strips. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my ruler to cut 5 2.5-inch strips. There's 1, 5. Okay, I'm going to move this out of the way. Let's do some subcuts. I'm going to go ahead and put that completely out of the way. Turn all this, and we are going to cut. This was 5 2.5-inch strips. Go ahead, and I'm just going to stack them up like this, line them up on a line, and we are going to cut out 72 2.5-inch squares. 72 2.5-inch squares. So this should give us 72 2.5-inch squares. Okay, that should be 72 of them. All right, technically that was 80, but whatever, the other ones can go in my bin. Moving on, we're going to line this up on a line again, straighten it up, and we're going to cut now 5 6.5-inch strips. 5 6.5-inch strips. And 5. All right, that should be my 5 6.5-inch strips, and that should be the total of 4.5 yards of fabric that we just cut off of there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stack all these up. Actually, I'm just going to stack 2 at a time and use my 2.5-inch ruler. I'm going to cut the selvage off. Let me put it on a line right there. I'm going to cut the selvage off. And now we are going to cut a total of 72 2.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles. So 2.5 like this. You need a total of 72. Stack all that up. Bring the other pieces down here. Line them up on a line. And now cut all this into 2.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles. It's already 6.5. So we're just cutting 2.5-inch off of here. And we'll get like 80, but that's okay. I'm just going to cut it until I have 72 of them. So I should have 72 2.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles. So from the background, let's recap. Oh, let me put it in order this way. That way you're reading it the way we cut it. All right, so we cut, as a recap, we cut 6 strips of width of fabric that were 15.5, and then we subcut them to 4.5 by 15.5. So 6 background rectangles that are 4.5 by 15.5. So 6 cuts that are 15.5 subcut to 54, 4.5 by 15.5. Then we cut 2 13-inch by width of fabric, turned it, and subcut it to 18 4.5 by 13-inch. So you cut 2 13-inch by width of fabrics, then you turned, subcut to 18 4.5 by 13 inches. And remember, you're using those end pieces too, because you'll get the exact amount for these with those end pieces. This we overcut slightly, and these we overcut slightly, but that's okay because it all works out, and it just happens that way. Anyway, so then you cut 5 2.5-inch strips by width of fabric, and then you subcut it into 72 2.5-inch squares. Okay, then you cut 5 6.5-inch width strips, 5 6.5-inch width strips, and then you turned it and subcut 72 2.5 by 6.5. So you're just going to cut it 2.5-inch segments until you have 72 6.5 2.5. So I'm going to go ahead and set all this aside. Let's work on those jelly rolls and all their cuts now. All right, here we have our jelly rolls. Let's just open them up. Get that sticker off of there. Pull that rubber band off and open them up so you can see all this beautiful goodness. Okay. All right, so let me open the second one up. Again, these are artesian batiks called butterfly blooms. Here's the little tag. It'll focus. Okay. Take this rubber band off and open these up. Just like that. All right. So we're going to go ahead now and pull out. Here's 40 already because this was a 40-piece set. Yep, 40. So there was 40 pieces here. So I need a total of 53. So here's 40. So we'll do 41, 42. We're just pulling out the extra. 54. The rest of this can all go for binding, and then, or this can be the binding. It really doesn't matter. I just pulled out the light ones since I'm going next to white. So here's all my extras. I'm going to set those aside and let's get started. First things first, we are going to pull out 36 of these. 36 of them are going to be for the blocks, and they're going to get cut exactly the same. And I probably should take all this to the iron real quick. I know I seem like I'm going back and forth to that darn iron, but all these ends are bent from being folded so long. I'm going to just press all this real quick, and then I'll separate my 36 of these for my blocks, and then you're going to put 14 of them separate and then 3 more separate. So that should be a total of your 53 strips. But I'm going to press these real quick. I pressed all the ends. Okay, so I brought forward right here 36 strips. All 36 of these strips are going to cut exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead now and start by laying a ruler on here so this stays steady on this side, because this ruler tends to move things. And I'm going to go ahead and cut straight right here on a line and take all those selvages off. I'm lined up on a line. I have them stacked in stacks of 5 and 1 stack of 6. You don't have to cut that many layers, but I will. It's batiks, so they cut a little bit better than normal. All right, so our first cut, remember these are folded in half, so you're going to get 2 of each of these numbers that I'm giving you. So our first cut is going to be 10 and 1/2. 10 and 1/2 inches. You need 2 10.5-inch strips, 1 from each, or 2 from each color. So again, this is folded in half. I'm getting 2 at a time, lined up at my 10.5 inches, and made the cut. I'm going to just carefully straighten all back out. Lay this here on this very edge so that stays. And now we're just going to slide these out of the way, and we're going to make our next cut, which is, this first one was 10.5. Our next one is 6.5. So I'm just going to line it up, 6.5 inches all the way down. I'm going to go ahead and make that cut. All right, so 6.5 inches. This next one, I know this is going to annoy everybody, and it annoyed me when I made it the first time, but we're going to go ahead and do it again because I don't want to make the extra cuts. Slide this out of the way, and every single one of these, there's 36 of them, we're just going to open them up, stack them, just like this. I'm literally stacking that nice straight edge of all of these. I'm going to cut 2.5 inches because we need 36 2.5-inch squares. So this set aside. So there's 5 or 6 to start because I don't even know how many was in that pile. One of the piles had 6. The rest of them all had 5. So we're cutting 2.5-inch squares. All right, there's my 36 2.5-inch squares. Now, while we're in this position, these don't matter. These can stay random all by themselves. But this, we are going to take our 2 6.5s and our 2 10.5s and pair them up. Take our 2 10s, pair them with our 2 6, 10.5, 6.5. Sorry, I'm used to just saying a solid number. 2 of these. This probably takes the longest, is separating these. This is the only stack of fabric so far that we'll be separating. 2 of those go together. And then just keep going until you have none. So, just as a recap, we have 2 6.5-inch square or rectangles from each strip, 2 10.5-inch rectangles from each strip, and from each strip we have just one 2.5-inch square. So you need 36 2.5-inch squares and 36 combinations of 10.5 and 6.5. All right, I'm going to set all this aside. Now we're going to take 14 of our jelly roll strips, 14 of them, going to stack them, cross a line so that I can get the selvage off of there. And we are going to cut these all at the same time. So 14 of them are going to get the same cut. So I'm going to line this up, straighten that, cut off the selvage at the same exact time. We're going to make one cut, which is going to give us 2 pieces and a total of 27 pieces. All right, 14 jelly roll strips. We're going to cut 15 and 1/2. Oops, where did that land? On the 23.5. So 15 and 1/2 by 2.5 inch. One of them is going to be extra. You don't need it, but I'm just going to keep it in the pile for now until I'm ready to sew everything up. So for now, just going to stack all these up, and I should have 27 2.5 by 15.5 inch pieces. All right, I'm going to set that aside. Now we have our last 3 jelly roll strips that you should have left. We're going to go ahead. I did press the fold out of these 3, so we will be able to open them up and cut again. These ones we're going to line up on a line, and we're going to cut a 2.5, which is what the strip is, by 13 inch. You need 9 of them by 13 inch, which I have on my ruler. So just going to lay it right there. And now I have 9 2.5 inch by 13 inch strips. Then that's 6, by the way. Here's 7, 8, 9 right here. Open it up. Open it up. I know I was not thinking when I said that out loud. And line it up. I never said I was perfect at this. Okay. Now, once they're opened up, I'm just going to keep that nice straight line right there. Oops, that one just shifted just a smidgen. I'm going to come over 13 inches. And then I will have a total of 9. All right, toss that aside. Now I should have 9 2.5 by 13 inch strips. Now this one, hold on, let's do this right real quick. These 3 were right side up. I hate when batiks end up backwards. So this one's right side up, this one's upside down. This one's right side up, this one's right side down. This one's right side up, this one was right side down. There we go. Now they're in order. And I'm going to do that same with these ones, just because, you know, I can. That was right side up. And you can see it's duller on the back side than it is on the front. Right side up. All right, you don't need to watch this. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish doing this, and we will move on to sewing. From 36 strips, you are going to cut, keeping them folded in half, one 10.5 inch cut, so you get 2 10.5 inch by 2.5 inch rectangles, and then you will cut a 6.5 inch by 2.5 inch. You'll get 2. Then open them up and cut one 2.5 inch square. So that's 2 10.5 inch, or just one cut, 2 6.5 inch, or just one cut, and then really open up and get just one cut for a total of 36 2.5 inch squares and 36 combinations of 10.5 and 6.5. Then your 14 2.5 inch strips were cut down into 27 2.5 by 15.5. So that's 15.5 inches. You need 27 of those. And then your final 3 strips were cut, and make sure you open on the fold, because you'll just need 9 2.5 by 13 inches. All right, so you're wondering what we're going to do with all this. We are going to set this out of the way and show you by literally bringing all the parts and pieces to everything onto the table. Let's put this on this side, and I'm going to show you the blocks that we're going to make. Okay, so here's all of our parts and pieces. What do you do with them? Well, first off, move those out of the way. Here is our 15.5 inch pieces, okay, of our jelly roll, and our 15.5 inch pieces of the not jelly roll of our background. We are going to make a block. Let's just slide all this out of the way so you can see. We're going to make 27 blocks that look like this. So you're going to put one of these on here, sew it down on one side, okay? Then you're going to open it up, pressing it towards this piece. And then you're going to take your other one, put it on there, sew along this, open it up, press it towards your batik or the darker fabric, which would be in the middle. Most people use white on the outsides. That's what we're doing. I'm probably going to sew these out of order as to how I filmed, but for now I'm just showing you that is one unit. We're going to repeat that process with our 13 inch pieces. So our 13 inch goes in the middle, and then on either side you're going to put a 4.5 by 13 inch piece. Again, you're going to sew those right here. So put this one on first, open it, press it, put this one on, open it, press it towards the center. Okay, so there's unit number 2. Let's move that out of the way. We'll move it to this side so you can see better. And now for the final unit, you have 36 of these. Okay, just going to keep this right here in the center. Stack them a little bit better. You have 36 of those, 72 of these. I'm just going to go ahead and stack this right here, that right there, move that over, and grab this stack of 7. Okay, there's your 2.5 inch square of your batik, or your focal fabric, your jelly roll strip. Your 72 pieces of 2.5 inch squares. Then you have 72 2.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles. Oh, come on. You know, sometimes you can stack fabric nicely like paper, and sometimes you cannot. Like right now. There we go. We're going to add to the top and bottom. So you're going to sew these together first. So literally just chain piece all these together, which you're going to see at the machine when we get to it. Then you're going to open it up, pressing towards the dark or towards your jelly roll, and then add this piece, pressing towards the jelly roll. Then you're going to add a 6.5 on the top of it, a 6.5 on the bottom of it. Then you're going to press towards the background because really there's no other choice to press it. Then you are going to take your 6.5-inch jelly roll strips. It does not have to match, so you can have it being an oddball one like this. We're not putting them together to match. You want something different in the middle. You're going to put a 6.5-inch of your jelly roll strip on either side of that, and then on the top and the bottom, you're going to put your jelly roll strip there as well. So you're going to see me at the machine chain piece all of these, and then chain piece all of this onto it. Then I'm going to chain piece all of one side onto this, all of this side onto that. I'm going to just separate, once these are all pressed, I'm literally going to do one block at a time, 36 blocks. So I'm going to do this one, and then the next one I'll pull and do that, and then the next one I'll pull and do that, keeping my pile right here next to me as I pull the parts and pieces per block. So I will just keep one at the machine at a time. I find that to be a lot easier for me. All right, so there that is. Let's just keep that there for 2 seconds. So the video is probably going to show these first, okay? And then we're going to make these units second. And then we'll make the 13-inch units last. I think that's the order in which I filmed them. So either way, that's how it goes together. And remember, everything's going to line up. If you cut your everything exact to size, 6.5 by 2.5, and you use your 1/4-inch seam, everything should land right on top. I mean, without seam allowances, you can see, but once it's all sewn together, it should land exactly at this edge and at that edge. We always place them on the sides that have the 2 seams. So 2 seams on the side is where these are going to go, like this. Then you're going to have 2 seams on the side when you place the top and the bottom. So it should be exact. Background again was 4.5 by 15.5. You needed 54 of those. You needed 27 of your 2.5 by 15.5-inch jelly roll strips. You needed 18 of your 4.5 by 13-inch rectangles. And then you needed 9 of your 2.5 by 13-inch rectangles of jelly roll. You needed 1 2.5 by 2.5-inch jelly roll square. That's 36 of them. Then you need a total of 72 6.5 by 2.5, a total of 72 2.5 by 2.5-inch backgrounds. And then lastly, from your jelly roll, all of it staying together. So from each jelly roll, you'll cut 1 10.5-inch strip, giving you 2, and 1 6.5-inch strip, giving you 2. And then you're opening it up and getting your 36 to make 36 blocks. So I'm going to sew all these together, and then you will see a totally different fabric being used, but we're going to sew it up. You get the idea. And then I will meet you at laying this out on the floor and how we're going to put it together. All right, here we are at the machine. We're going to take our jelly roll pieces and our background squares, and we are going to attach a jelly roll square to a background square, and we're going to chain piece all these through. So I'm just going to go one right after the other. Right sides together, sew it through. Right sides together, sew it through. And just go until they are all sewn. All right, once they are all sewn, chain piece style, I'm going to go ahead and bring all of this onto my lap. And we're going to open these up. And we are going to add a background now to the other side. So it will be background, jelly roll, background. It'll be a strip unit that looks like that. So just open it, place one on top. Open it, place it. All right, once we are done with that, we're going to snip it all apart and we're going to press these towards the background. So I'm just going to open everything up and press it to the background, okay? So it's going to just look like that, pressing it towards the background. So I'm going to go ahead and snip these apart and go press them, and I'll meet you at the cutting table. You can see that this jelly roll is making quite the mess. So don't forget that pre-cuts are extremely messy, but you don't have to use pre-cuts. You can cut your own strips from your fabric and use scraps or whatever. All right, anyways, once these are pieced, you have a unit that looks like this. And we are going to take our 2.5 by 6.5 inch background pieces, and we are going to go onto both sides, like this, of the piece, creating a square in a square. So we're going to go ahead now and sew one of these to each side. So I'm going to chain piece all one side, then open them up and chain piece the opposite side on. So let's go over to the machine and start sewing. Again, I'm literally just taking one of these and one of these, putting it on one side. It should be exactly the same size if your 1/4 inch seam allowance is accurate. And then I'm just going to chain piece all of these through from one side and then come back and do the opposite side. So now I'm just opening them up like this and putting the other side on. I'm just going to chain piece these through, just open it, place the other side on. Until they are all surrounded by your background. All right, now that these are sewn, I'm going to take this over and press them all towards the background. So I'm going to press this way and that this way. That way everything goes towards the background. Or in my case, the black fabric. We are going to play a matchy-matchy, not matchy-matchy game. I'm going to take one of these and a totally different color of an outside set. So you have your 2 6.5 inch by 2.5 inch jelly roll pieces. And then you have your 2 2.5 by 10.5 inch jelly roll pieces. We are going to attach 2 sides, open them up, and then attach the top and bottom. Now you can chain piece if you want, so I can go through and take all of these smaller 6.5 inch ones and chain piece the matchings on both sides of all of this. Or I can just do one block at a time. There's only 32 blocks, so it shouldn't take too long. I'm going to go ahead and do the one at a time method, so I'm literally going to sew these on right here. And then once those are sewn on, I'm going to add the top and bottom, and every single one of these are going to be different. So I'm going to go ahead and pair these together. I'm going to set it aside. Then I'm going to grab another set and I'm going to pair it together. So here's 2 of my 6.5s, again, like that, and then 2 of my 10.5s, just like this, and that will be my block. So I'm going to go ahead and just pair a different color of all of these to each one of these. So I can just grab this one and put it with this set. Then grab this one and put it with this set. This one I'll put with this set until all of this is paired up. Once I have all of my groupings, I'm going to just start taking one block at a time. I will sew it all on, and then I'm going to press it all at the end. So I'm just going to put my 2 sides on one more time. I'm just going to put my 2 sides on, and over at the machine, I will finger press these corners back and then add my 10.5 to the top and the bottom. So for me, due to the fact that it is summertime, I am trying to limit the amount of time that the iron is on here in my room. That's the only reason why I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to go ahead, right sides together, and I'm going to sew my one side on. It should be exactly the right size. I'm going to sew my other side on. I'm going to give it a little finger press in all the corners. I'm not worried about the whole entire block at the moment, but now it should be exactly this side. So if you take your hand and hold that out, lay that piece on the edge, start it, line it up. It should be exactly right here, see, to this side. Exactly the same size. And I just went ahead and finger pressed that seam. So there's one more side. Go ahead and lie this on here. It should be exactly the size it needs to be. My seam is pressed out. So until I get to the iron, for now, you can see it's pressed by folding it back just with my fingers. So for now, here is one block. That's what it should look like. I'll show you more when we get these sewn up. So let's sew one more real quick for the camera purposes, because this is going to take a while, so I won't do the rest of this on camera. All right, so I'm going to put one side on. It should be exactly the same size. See that? Exactly the same size. And I also am adding it to the side that has the two seams. So you can see the two seams. This is the side that I'm putting these on. So it's exactly the right size from side to side. Sew it on. I'm going to get that seam from flipping. And then I'm just going to finger press. I'm pushing these corners down just with my fingernail. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this side. Start it right here at the top. Line it up at the bottom. It should be exactly the same size. Mine only sticks out a little tiny bit, and that's because I have pinked edges. Okay, and I'm going to put this other one on. Just lining it up at this top first, and then I'm going to take a couple stitches, line my bottom up, hold it, and there's block 2. So I'm just going to repeat this process over and over until it is done. I'm not going to bother with a fast forward. Like I said, it's just going to take too long. So I'm just going to sew on my own now. The last thing to do, I'm going to set those aside, is to make some units. Just split this pile in half. Wow, that's not quite half, but whatever. And split this pile in half. And we are going to make some units that look like this. So here's our 15.5 by 4.5, 15.5 by 2.5, and the 15.5 by 4.5 sandwich. And then we have a 13 by 4.5, 13 by 2.5, and 13 by 4.5 sandwich. So I'm literally going to take all of these, place them on one side, stitch on down like that, and then open it up, pressing it to the dark, and then add this side. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of these blocks now. Here we are at the machine. I'm just going to go ahead and take and sew these. I'm just going to chain piece along my 4.5 by 13s and my 2.5 by 13 inch jelly roll pieces. I'm just going to sew them with 1/4 inch seam, just like this. Oops, come on now. And we're out of bobbin thread. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And then I'm going to sew the rest of these up till the next step. Now they're pressed to the dark. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attach the other side. So I'm literally just going to go like this. They're exactly the same size. Just going to place that on there and sew. And I'm going to repeat with all the rest of the 8 because there's a total of 9. Next is we're going to use our 2.5 by 15.5 and our 4.5 by 15.5 inch backgrounds, and we're going to pair those together and then press and then add the other side. So it's the same exact thing, just a longer piece. So I'm going to place the bigger ones right here, and we're going to grab these now and sew the other side on. So I'm literally just going to line them up, same exact size, and sew it on. Until all of them are sewn up, and then I will press them towards my background again, because that's the way I've been pressing everything. Except for when I made the blocks itself. Those I pressed away from the center. All right, let me just sew these up now. All of my parts and pieces are now ready to lay out. Now, I did decide to make this quilt bigger than my design wall, so we are going to take this all to the design floor, which would be my living room floor, where we can lay this out, and I will show you where everything goes and how it lays out, how we will sew it together. Here we are on the floor. So we have our 10.5 inch blocks, our 13 inch by 10.5 inch, and our 15.5 by 10.5 inch. Now it's time to lay it all out. Now, obviously you can't see the whole floor because, well, this is my living room, but I will move the camera around if possible so that you can see the whole entire thing kind of thing. But I will verbally tell you how this goes because I don't have a picture to show you how it lays out. So we're going to start with a 13 inch by 10.5 inch, and that's going to go in the far top corner. And then directly below it, we are going to put a 10.5 inch square in a square in a square, square in a square in a square. Okay, so we're going to start off doing this. Way up in the top corner. Just like that. I don't think you can even see it. Then the next one we're going to add is one of these long ones. I'm going to try to blend mine through with color. Then the next thing you're going to add is a short one. I mean a square. Sorry, a square. Then another long one. Then another square. Then another long one. And another square. And the camera will move around because Scott's assisting today. Now the next row is going to start with a square. Then a long one. We'll grab this one instead. Then another square. I need more dark right here. I'm going to try to balance it out. Then a long one. Then a square. Then a long one. a square, and a short one. 2, 3, 4. Yep. So row 1 should have your 13-inch, a 10-inch square, the 13-inch, the 10.5-inch square, a 15.5-inch rectangle, 10-inch, 10.5-inch square, 15.5-inch rectangle, 10.5-inch square, 15.5-inch rectangle, and a 10.5-inch square. Then the second row starts with the square, then has the long rectangle, square, long rectangle, square, long rectangle, square, short rectangle. So the next row is going to start with a short rectangle. And then you go to the square. We don't have any pretty blue like this yet. And then a long one. And then a square. And then a long one. A square. A long one. And one final square at the bottom. Also, the fan is blowing, so my stuff might blow a little. Now, the next row is going to start with a square, and then start with the long. So square, then the long one, then a square, then a long one. Actually, let's put this one here. There we go. Then a square, then a square, and then a short one. All right, then the next row is pretty much repeating itself. So again, I'm going to start with a short one. And then it's going to be alternating between the 10.5-inch square and the long pieces. Then this one will end with the short one, or with a square on the bottom, and the next one will start with the long one. The square. If that makes any sense at all. Oh, that's going to be up there. Where am I at? I'm right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in fast forward the way I would just lay it out, and then you'll see, and we'll move it around so that you can see it all. As you can see right here, we have the short one, short one, short one, short one, short one. 9 rows across. So it's going to go short, square, short, square, short, square, short, square, short. Then all it is the square, a long one, square, long one, square, long one. Then on the ends that you started with a square, you end with a short one. Opposite. So you'll have 4 blocks on each row. So 4 of the squares on each row. Okay? And it's just alternating. So that's the layout. All right, so I have my large binding clips. I'm going to put them on their rows 1. So they're a large clip like this. I'm going to go ahead and put the number that they are in the row real quick. And then we're going to start picking all this up. It may take a minute. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. To pick the rows up I'm going to come over here and grab the one clip and temporarily stick it on there. Then I'm just going to pick it up and stack it like this, nicely, the whole way, one on top of the other, on top of the other, then take the whole clip and stick it on the whole thing. Start over from the top. Doesn't matter what's top and bottom, both directions are the same exact thing, as long as you're picking them up one, up on top of the other, up on top of the other. Nicely, keep them straight so that you don't flip or turn anything. When I laid these all out, I want to show you. I laid them out where the seam right here, this flat seam, touches the next block up, not this way. So just the flat side touches the next block up. That way there's no seams touching another seam side. So now that they're all stacked up, I'm just going to, since they're clipped together and hooked, I'm just going to take one, throw it on top of two, on top of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And there we have it. So now all I have to do is go sew the rows together. Let's go do that. All right, so the rows are together. Remember, like I said while I was out there, when I attach the rows, this straight with no seams edge is the one that touches the next one and the next one and the next one. So I'm going to start by placing one down, placing the next one right on top like this. I mean, there's no seams to match in this whole entire quilt. So this part should go quick and easy. I'm just gonna bring those right there instead to make it easy. And then what I'm gonna do is place a clip, the one clip back on the one. So now I'm just gonna grab the next one. Again, that non-seamed edge is the side that goes on first. Nice flat straight edge. Then just add the next and the next and the next. Like literally, it's very, very simple. And since there is no seams to match, when I go over to the iron to press this row, what I will do is press everything, and I come on threaded, I will press everything towards the blocks because there's no seam there and it wants to lay that way, so everything's going to get pressed towards the blocks. So now I just need to rethread. It's coming undone because lately I have been running a fan next to me to keep me cool because quilting and summertime in Arizona do not go together. All right, so I'm just going to keep doing this until all of my rows are stitched. Then I'm just going to hook 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. I'm just going to keep hooking them on in order. So I will put it in fast forward while I sew this up. But before I do that, again, see how it wants to go that way? The seams are going to get pressed towards the bigger block. So for now, row 1 can just get put out of the way. And I will iron them all last. I'm going to keep this all from getting wrinkled and just fold it up, sort of, fold it up. After each row, I'm just going to kind of fold them up a little, grab the next row, start sewing it. I'm going to put piece 2's clip on the top. And then start sewing. So, here's fast forward. Okay, so now that they are pressed, it's time to put the rows together. So here I have row 9 and row 8. I'm literally going to put row 9 on top of row 8 and sew that side, and then I'm going to do that to 7 and 6, 5 and 4, 3 and 2, and then add the 1 to the end, and then put the rows together. So I'm going to do 2 at a time until I get down to the 1. Right now I'm just lining it up, putting it on my lap. You can pin at this step if you would wish to. I'm just going to stack them on my lap because they're exactly the same size. If you used a 1/4 inch seam, it should be exactly the same size and everything should be great. So I'm going to go ahead and just line up my ends. I'm going to back stitch. And without pulling or tugging, I'm just holding it between my fingers, letting it slide through. There's not one seam to match in this whole entire quilt, which makes it super duper easy. I'm just making sure that the seams that are on the bottom side don't flip as I'm sewing the top ones, but I'm also making sure don't flip. And then when I get close to the end, you can see they're the same exact size. So I'm just going to hold those together, stitching the rest of the way. Okay, so I still have their clips on the top, so I know this is 9 and 8. So now I'm going to find 7, and it's going to go on top of 6. Because I'm kind of going backwards, the wrong direction. So if you want to go 1, then hook 2 on top of that, and then 3 and 4, that's, if you want to do it that way, you can. I'm not stopping you. I'm just doing it the way I pressed them, because I kind of pressed them in backwards order. So I sewed them in the right order and then started pressing them, and so they became backwards. So I'm just sewing it from the opposite direction. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of all this as I sew these together. Here is the finished quilt top. Next time you see this, it will be done. As in, backing fabric chose. Now to long arm quilt this one. Oh, wait. I also got a long arm quilt this one. The one you saw me piecing together. So I chose a back for this, and I chose a back for that. Now it's time to put some black batting in this one, some white batting in this one, and quilt them up. So I'll be back in like whoever knows how long, probably 2 or 3 hours, but here goes nothing. Toodles. And here is number 1. So this is the black and colorful version. Again, like I said, starts with a short, then a square, then a long square, long square, long square, and then the next row starts with a square and ends with a short. So just remember that when you go to put this together. It is super easy. A very beginner can do this because there's not one seam in this whole entire quilt to nest. Not in the blocks, not in these. None of it nests, so you don't have to worry about matching anything up. If it doesn't land exactly, you're going to be good. It's going to be great. But as long as you keep a consistent 1/4 inch seam allowance, this would be your result. So here is number 1. Let's take a closer look at it. I did a wood grain quilting on it. Gives it great texture, as well as it looks amazing. This is one of those fabric lines I wish still existed, because I would totally buy a yard of each of these fabrics. They are so beautiful. I just love the colors. And here's the back. I chose a pink for this one because it really goes well with not only the quilting, but it looks great on the front too because there's pink in the front. So, I mean, why not? So here's the back of this one. Let's take a closer look at it. And here is the second version. I mean, well, it can't be a version. It's the same thing. It's just a different color. So this is the white, more subtle look to me, I think. It's not as dramatic as using black as the background. But this one works perfect with those purples, teals, and blues. Like, it just radiates amazement. I love it. I love the colors. I love the fabrics. They have butterflies in them, and y'all know that butterflies are my favorite. So I even quilted this one with butterflies and like a swirly thing. It looks really awesome. This one I did use the leftover pieces for, well, some of the leftover pieces for binding around this one, and it worked out great. So let's take a closer look at this one. And here is the back of the white one. So it's got a teal back. It looked great with the front, so when it's folded over, it looks magnificent together. The colors just go great. Let's take a closer look at this one. So are you a bad quilter or a good quilter? Which one do you like? I like them both. And you know what? When I and Scott put these up here, honestly, now I want to make a half and half one because when I step away, the two combined looks amazing. Like it would be the perfect quilt. So, and I was staring at it, I was like, now I want to make another one. Woof, I just keep making and making and making. I made these two in 3 days, quilted and everything. So, I mean, I probably could make another one half and half in just one day, you know, and get it done. But which one is your favorite, the white or the black? Let me know in the comments below this video. I hope you enjoyed making the line dance quilt, or in my case, quilts, plural, because I made two. So hopefully you enjoyed this line dance pattern. Like I said, it's super beginner friendly, super easy. You don't need to even really know how to do much because there's no seams to nest, no half square triangles, and no fussiness. It's just super simple and straight to the point. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.